Time for another viewer suggested challenge. So this is coming from Veloxius, and this is his third challenge for me. I gotta play as Tank General, as Nuke General, but you're only allowed to build Battle Masters and Gatling Tanks, plus any non-combatant units including Lotus and Hacker, limited to 25, isotope stability upgrade is banned, no super weapon and no base defenses. So for this one, I couldn't pull it off with Battle Masters and Gatling Tanks, so I ended up saying in an update video that we will swap those to Overlords. He was okay with it, but he did add a couple of extra rules like no subliminal messaging upgrade from the propaganda center, and also hackers are going to be bumped up to 40 because Overlords are going to cost a bit more compared to Battle Masters and Gatling Tanks. So with all of that out of the way, let's begin. So we've got 3 supply centers at 3 different supply areas. I'm going to go with 2 supply trucks at each one. So that way I can just try and build up my cash as fast as possible here. We've got limited amount of time before Kwai's units actually arrive at my base to actually get me. So now all I have to do is just wait for the cash to come in from my supply trucks, so then I can start building my war factories and then get the propaganda center for those overlords. So I did delay a little bit. We went for the first war factory, then we went for a barracks. So barracks, hackers, Black Lotus, those 2 things are on the table still. Now with our first war factory built, we can go for the propaganda center. Because we got those 3 supply centers worth of resources, we were able to recoup the 2k we needed quickly. So I did build a reactor as well next to the propaganda center. And reason for that is because I know the reactor that I built next to the command center would get destroyed at some point, so I wanted to have that reactor further back so then I can still retain the build speed of building whatever buildings I still need. Same goes for units too. So with all of that out of the way, we just got to wait on the propaganda center to be built. We're also going to get our dozers into position because we are going to have attacks from Kwai that are going to hit the command center and the war factories too. So having the war factories further back behind the command center roughly means that a lot of Kwai's attacks are mainly going to go for the command center, which is going to be the most tanky building that I've got. So again, meat shield command center strats, it's one of my favorite strats to use, and we're basically going to use the overlords to pick off some of those tanks that are going for the command center, and then that way I don't take as much damage overall, and those will stay behind the command center to keep it nice and repaired. So with Kwai's attack getting started here, we're going to lose our supply trucks and a couple of supply centers. We've still got 2 supply trucks remaining at our base to gather resources, so resource gathering is going to be slowed down a little bit, but I can't get my hackers just yet because I need to build overlords to defend my base from Kwai's attacks for the time being. I just got to be able to defend the base but also keep the overlords intact as well, because if I lose overlords then it means I have to build another overlord to replace that one, which slows down the hacker production even more. So I've got 6 overlords total, 3 at each side, so we're pretty good on defense right now. So I can get to the hackers very shortly. Now, if you didn't notice, I ended up building Black Lotus as well after the propaganda center got built. So I do have plans for Black Lotus. Now, my original plan for Black Lotus was when I was doing Battle Masters and Gatling Tanks instead of the Overlords. So if you wanted to beat this challenge, you could just do Overlord spam and then rush into Kwai's base. That would be the simple method, but I wanted to basically do what I had planned originally, just using Overlords instead. But the whole Black Lotus plan is totally unnecessary. It's just a little bit extra, and I wanted to demonstrate what I had in mind if the Battle Masters and the Gatling Tanks were strong enough to defend my base for that extended period of time. So I'm finally going for a hacker now because I do need to increase the rate of resources here. We are eventually going to run out of resources at the base, and there's no way I'm going to be able to gather resources at the other spots. So here comes the first Emperor Overlord. I got 3 Overlords myself, so if it's a 3v1, we're pretty good here. My Overlord did go down to less than half health, but we were able to retain all of our Overlords, which means I can keep building up my hackers as well. So I'm just getting my Overlords into better positions here, that way I can use all 3 to fire on each tank, just like that one Battle Master there. So I've got 2 hackers to begin with, so it's not a lot, but it is a start. Now these hackers, I wanted to put them in the corner there, but they could not walk past the in-between of that war factory and supply center there, so they're just going to hack where they are, and I just had to set up a different rally point, and that new rally point is going to be basically my only rally point for hackers from this point on. Now, when it comes to hackers, Veloxius did say I could go up to 40 hackers. I didn't actually need to go up to 40 hackers. I think I went up to like 22 hackers, give or take, but yeah, not too many hackers were needed for this battle. So I did almost lose an Overlord there, so I do need to pull out with that Overlord at some point as well, so then I can keep some of the fire off of him too. And also another thing, general powers are allowed for this challenge. The second challenge from Veloxius, that one does have limits on general powers, but I'm allowed to use whatever general powers I like for this one. So I went for cluster mines, I went for barrage on the propaganda center, so then I can prevent Kwai from building any more Emperor Overlords for a little while. It's only a temporary thing, but I do need to stop those Emperors from killing off my own Overlords. So we're not doing too bad. We just got our 5th hacker from the barracks here, so what I'm doing is kind of a mix of hackers with Overlords. I could just spend all my cash on hackers, and then that way I can build up my cash faster, but 3 Overlords at each side isn't going to be enough to handle all of Kwai's attacks, and there is a case where Kwai will send out all of his tanks from his base over to you. That usually happens if you send units into his base. So I do need to be wary of that as well, because I do have Black Lotus too. And if I'm going to use Black Lotus to go into Kwai's base, then if she gets detected, then that could trigger Kwai's units into rushing my base. So I do need to have enough Overlords in reserve too, in order to be able to, defend myself. And another thing is I need to be able to have enough Overlords with Gatling cannons to be able to take out Kwai's MiGs and Helixes, because he does incorporate aircraft around 9 to 10 minutes into the battle, and we're getting close to that 9-minute mark too, so it's going to happen any minute now. So right now I'm just playing the waiting game with General Kwai, just waiting on more Overlords and more hackers. Because we got 4 Overlords at each side though, I felt like building more hackers was definitely the way, because 4 Overlords seems to be holding off both infantry as well as tanks, and even the aircraft to some degree. We did lose an Overlord there, but I did have the cash to easily replace that one too. So we're in pretty good shape, and we're just going to continue to churn out more hackers, and then eventually just keep busting out those Overlords willy-nilly, and then we could do a tank rush as well into Kwai's base later on. Now we did hit rank 5. I chose to go for EMP Pulse and level 2 Cash Hack. Repairability isn't helpful here because Overlords do have the speaker tower as well. Even if it's not got subliminal messaging, it's still going to be able to repair my tanks for me. And my dozers and my supply trucks, if they get within the radius of the Overlord, they can get repaired too. So I felt like the repairability wasn't necessary. So I went for Carpet Bomb on base defenses, and I used the EMP Pulse as a map revealer, so then I could cash hack from Kwai's supply center too. So when it comes to General Kwai, he's very consistent at rebuilding his buildings, although he doesn't rebuild his bunkers. So if you were to do a tank rush against him in a General's Challenge, and you've destroyed those bunkers, then I highly recommend you go in from that particular point, because his defense is going to be weaker than his other points of defense. Now, what I've done is I've used my Carpet Bomb on the Gatling Cannon and bunker off to the far right. So this wasn't exactly part of my original plan. I hadn't tried this in other attempts, but I'm sneaking Lotus into Kwai's base from the far right. In other attempts, I would take out the Gatling Cannon that's off to the left, and then use my artillery barrage on the Gatling Cannon that's next to the speaker tower where the reactors are. So this is completely different, uncharted territory. My Lotus is far away enough, so we did avoid that Gatling Cannon detection there, and we're able to sneak her into Kwai's base. But I still got to be on the lookout for Gatling Helixes and Emperor Overlords, because both of those things can detect stealth. So after I got my Lotus into position, I checked in on my Overlords. They seem to be doing just fine, and I checked back, and my biggest fear came true. There's an Emperor Overlord on the way, and I'm like, oh no, I think I'm in trouble here, because that Emperor could detect me. I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't have a Gatling Cannon. If he doesn't build a Gatling Cannon, we might be okay. And yeah, I thought the only option here is just to remain where we are, because Kwai's rebuilt the Gatling Cannon, so I was like, I can't go anywhere, I'm trapped. And the Emperor Overlord He just went on by, but there's another one that does have a Gatling cannon. And I'm just like, oh no. And he actually turned away. If he didn't turn away, my Lotus would have been absolutely screwed here. But I got super lucky there because of the pathing of that Emperor Overlord. So the plan is still alive. We can still use Lotus to carry out the thing that I've got planned for General Kwai. And I'm just using my hackers to actually hack now because I did have a couple of strays that were just standing there doing nothing. So with Black Lotus, she's going to actually capture a building as well. So we're going to capture a reactor, but I need to pick my moment here because I'm going to be able to capture the building, but also avoid getting destroyed by Kwai's other units too. So I did destroy some MiGs as well, so I was like, I do feel a little bit better about going in for the capture on that reactor, but then I'm just like, ugh, I'm in two minds. Do I do it? Do I not do it? So yeah, it did take me a while to actually finally bite the bullet and make a choice. So we're holding our own just fine against General Kwai right now with 5 overlords at each side. Now with Black Lotus, I finally made my choice to capture this reactor. So there is a reason why I want this reactor specifically. Now the reason why I want to capture this reactor is because I want to sell it. So by selling off the reactor, I'm going to move my Black Lotus a little bit further up. Now doing that is also going to prevent General Kwai from rebuilding that reactor, but because there was a reactor inside General Kwai's base, it's actually triggered his tanks inside his base to come to me. Now I've still got 5 overlords at each side, and I can also build more overlords if we need to. So I'm basically banking on all of these overlords to take out all of his tanks that he sends my way. Now doing all of that means that he's going to be very weak inside of his base compared to what he had before. So if we were to do tank rush against him, we could very easily break in through that point where we took out the 2 bunkers and then basically push north and then take out everything else. So I'm just playing the waiting game on these tanks right now. Now because it's a mix of Battle Masters and Gatling tanks and Emperors, it's going to be different movement speeds for each tank, so it does mean that those attacks are staggered and they could be a lot worse if they were all grouped together, but thankfully for me, because they're staggered, they're not going to be that strong. So right now I do have my new Carpet Bomber in reserve in case I do need it. So here comes a big group of tanks, so lots of Gatling tanks and Battle Masters, also a Helix too. So we were able to take out that group, and here comes 2 Emperors, and I didn't even think about it. I just went straight for that new Carpet Bomber. I was sort of like panicking there. I was like, yeah, I think I'll just play it safe and take those guys out, because if I lose this batch, then I'm going to have to split up my other overlords and then weaken my defense at my other side. So I thought, yeah, just be better safe than sorry here. So we did use our barrage on another Gatling cannon, so that one is in the way of our Black Lotus. I need to get rid of that 1 Gatling cannon, so then I can push north with my Black Lotus, so then I can capture more buildings. So now that's out of the way, I can move on to the airfield, I can move on to other reactors, the war factory, the propaganda centers, also another one, command center, that's also another one. So a lot of good things that we could do with Black Lotus. Thing is though, I gotta make sure that I do it but not get detected, and I also gotta make sure that I do it and the MiGs aren't, you know, like airborne ready to pounce on me too. So yeah, just gotta pick my time. So at this point I'm just playing the waiting game again, just waiting on that right moment for Black Lotus to capture the airfield. So that's my next target. Now the reason why I want to capture the airfield is because I want to slow down Kwai's production of MiGs and Helixes, which means there's less aggro on my overlords as well. Now by capturing the airfield, what I'm going to do with the airfield is I'm actually going to sell it just like I did with the reactor earlier on, and I'm going to move Black Lotus to where the airfield was to prevent Kwai from rebuilding the airfield. So basically some form of scaffold abuse, just using units instead of scaffolds. So with Black Lotus, we're just going to stay in that position for the time being and wait for the right moment to capture the command center next. And here I realized he's got 3 dozers clustered together, and that's all 3 of his dozers. He does not have any more dozers than that. So I just found a golden moment there. I was like, oh, we could use our next artillery barrage on that. If we do that and we time it just right and capture the command center, then we've just taken away his production pretty much, and we can just focus on destroying his war factories and everything else, and he won't be able to rebuild. So I was like, this is fantastic. I couldn't have hoped for anything better. So to basically sum up my plan, the plan was to destroy his base defenses, sneak Lotus into his base, capture his command center, move Lotus to where the command center is to then scaffold abuse, then use general powers on each dozer to destroy them, and then we can use general powers on the production buildings to prevent him from building any more units to attack me. So that was my plan if I was using the Battle Masters and the Gatling tanks, but the problem with that is the Battle Masters and the Gatling tanks just weren't good enough. Kwai's Battle Masters and Emperor Overlords were simply too strong for my Battle Masters and Gatling tanks. And even if I had the Isotope ability, my Battle Masters wouldn't be enough. So this is what would have happened if they were enough. That's why I'm using the Overlords. And now that I know that the plan works, we can now just finish Kwai off normally with the Overlords and just do cleanup. So now that we've destroyed the dozers and captured the command center, we're going to go after the airfield next with our Carpet Bomb. So the Carpet Bomb on the airfield is kind of hit or miss. It really depends on how much anti-air Kwai has with the flight path of my plane. So I didn't make it this time round, but it doesn't really matter because I'm going to send in a bunch of my tanks to that weak point of Kwai's defense. So I'm going to be able to have easy access into his base. I didn't send all of my Overlords. I wanted to keep some back at my base just as reserves in case Kwai does have any strong attacks coming my way. But I've still got about a dozen or so tanks that are in his base right now. So it should be easy work, and Kwai's tanks are kind of diminished because he did send a bunch of them my way when I captured his reactor earlier on in the battle, so I'll be able to make light work of that war factory. So it's turning into a bad habit, but I keep comboing my general power planes in the wrong order here, so I should be using the Carpet Bomb plane first, then a couple of seconds later using the Cluster Mine plane. That way the Cluster Mine plane will take the anti-air for the Carpet Bomb, and then the Carpet Bomb will hit its mark. But in any case, even though it didn't work, I still have all these tanks that will deal with the rest of Kwai's stuff. And that's going to be how I did Veloxius's challenge. You know, Overlords, 40 hackers, no base defenses, no super weapons. So if you enjoyed this one, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I do have a playlist if you want to check out any of my other content. I'm Crackler, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
You may have defeated my tanks, General, but the Tigress will crush you like an insect.